Well, I've been thinking about this. Some things need to be said. Uh, Mary, as far as I know, her employer, um, home base, did not transfer anything to you, Betty, um, in particular, except that Mary had said she was uncomfortable now and didn't want to come back. That's the only fact that I know is accurate. No more. That's all that you know. Two, um, as far as I know, there are no particulars that Mary wrote, which would be commensurate with what the way she is. But in any case, if home base did not give any particulars, because I think that you would have shared them with me, uh, then the question is, why didn't they, if they had them? And I think you should ask them for my edification and also for accuracy in your communication with me, so we have a mutual understanding that we know what Mary was actually concerned about, what she was actually made uncomfortable by, because we don't know that. We know that she's uncomfortable, and nobody wants her to be uncomfortable. She doesn't want to be uncomfortable, obviously. But how can the situation be addressed? Um, did I say something that made her uncomfortable? And was it unkind, or was it something that needed to be said? We can't figure these things out. And yet, you called me up, Betty, and said I had done something wrong, you know, and brought up a conversation that we had had some 6 months ago, I think, and which I initiated 6 months ago. You did not notice anything was wrong. I brought it up that I thought I had been trying too hard to help Mary, and was felt that I was too much personally invested in the situation. Um, I did not say that she was uncomfortable at the time. I said I was uncomfortable at the time, and began to withdraw in some ways. However, before you jump to any conclusions, as you've done, uh, it's always important to know when you're jumping to conclusions to stop yourself, because once you jump to a conclusion, you can't gather any more information. And this is a good example, because from the very beginning she came here, I noticed that she was having problems. These things are obvious. Somebody's too tired. They whatever. I mean, it's just the kind of thing that's obvious. And you talking to me, you notice that I notice things that are obvious to me, and you don't even notice them. Like, you made all these assumptions, and you didn't realize you were making erroneous assumptions, and I'm pointing them out, and now you see them, perhaps. But I don't know that you're going to do anything about them, but it's up to me. I am morally obligated to myself, to protect myself, and to say something about this, uh, for my own self-esteem and appropriateness in our relationship. I mean, if we're going to have a reasonable relationship professionally. But you see, even though we have only a professional relationship, it's important for me to take a step back and show you that you have some personal assumptions that are not professional. And in order to do that, I have to step out of the professional role into another role, wear another hat, And you may see this is very useful, but I see it's essential for me to do so for myself. So it's essential for me to go from the professional mode to what would be called the chit-chat mode, as you might say. Something that somebody, you might say, well, let's keep it only professional and not go into anything personal. But I'm sorry, but there are times when you must go into personal mode in order to deal with this whole situation in a healthy manner for everybody. And this is why I heard you, when you started talking to me, I began to separate out. Let's talk about the professional aspect of any comments and the chit-chat of any comments, in which you intimated right away that chit-chat was not appropriate, to stay out of it. But you got to realize that you had no legal authority to make that request. You had no moral authority either under the circumstances. You can't tell me, nobody can tell me, or any two people, under any circumstances, they can't chit-chat if they feel like it, if they're keeping it private. Number one, you've got no way to monitor it. So why create a false impression of your authority to these people? And you're going to engender disrespect in your employees or the people that you're dealing with if you make that kind of request when you can't monitor it. It's not legal. It's not moral if it's being done for healthy purposes. You understand you see all these things you didn't think about what you were doing for yourself. But now you begin to see that I can really see people, and it has nothing whatsoever to do with whether they want to divulge these personal things about themselves. Nobody can prevent me as a person of who I am as an individual and my capabilities, etc., to stop me from actually perceiving who you are, your mental processes, your psychodynamics, and all those kinds of things, assumptions that you don't even know you're making, its implications and the problems it's causing for you. Now, when Mary was here, it became evident to me right away, because she was, even though you and I were just talking on the phone for a half an hour, here is Mary in my apartment, this close to me. I can see her, I can hear her, all kinds of things, And I immediately became aware of that I could be very useful to her. And so I said, look, I'm 72, you're 24. And I said, look, I can save you, from what I've learned, looking back over half a century as an adult. I'm looking back, and maybe I can save you a lot of trouble, from things that I've learned, some basic things that you're going to encounter, that everybody encounters as a young person. And I said, are you interested? See, I asked, are you interested? And she said, yes. And so I typed up several pages of, here are things like being informed. Here are sources of information in various areas that are very useful. Here's some other things various other things about food, about exercise, about socialization, about love, about relationships, about marriage, about all kinds of things, references, you can go here, do that, go find, these kinds of things. And she thought they were very interesting. And I gave her the printout. And there were some other conversations. And at one point, one of the things that I remember when I was 20 years old, and I was just leaving grad school, is that on the radio, a man came on who was a millionaire, somebody like that, and he said, 99% of people in this country will be totally unprepared for retirement. And so he said some other things, but I just stuck it in my mind. I says, okay, point taken, you see. And this was a this was a great thing to have heard. Just some kind of a, I think it was something, it was a blurb on the radio. And so I told her, because I had looked it up, and I said earlier, obviously, I said I was aware of this, and I said, Mary, um, how much do you think you'd have to? Here you are, 24. How much do you think you'd have to save a month in order to have $1 million when you're 65? She said, I don't know. I mean, just you got to be kidding. And I said, really? Well, there's a website here, and look at the numbers. If you start now, and I think the number was $100 a month, compound interest. Of course, that's the name of the game. You'll have $1 million or so, and here's the calculations. Given the present interest rates, which are very low, very, very low historically, so you would most likely have a lot more. If every month you do this, and you have to remember that if you get married, you have a prenuptial agreement, so that does not it gets split up in a divorce. Then you have to pay attention. You've got a boyfriend, which you declined to talk about for some reason, which is your prerogative, but I think it's kind of peculiar that the father of your child, and you talk about family, but I've never heard you speak with any affection about anybody, or you've never used the word love or anything like this, And she remarked, I don't need love or attention. And I said, everybody does. And she said, no, I get mine from my son, who's 3 years old. Now, see, on the surface, you might say, isn't that wonderful? But if you think about it a little bit, that's really terrible news. If she were giving her son, if she had enough places to give to her love to her son, that would be the direction that things should be going. But she's saying she's getting her hugs and love and attention from her son. That is not appropriate. And that child is not getting what it needs. And that child will seem very nice for a while as it grows up. But when there's going to come a time when the deficiency of love it was given as a baby, which are the formative years for those kinds of organs to develop within a person's psyche, it's going to act out. And every psychologist, psychiatrist knows about this. Mary says she knows nothing about psychology. Big problem looming. Because her son will most likely experiment with drugs, sex, unprotected sex of relationships, maybe other marriageless children, crime of various kinds. You look into people's lives who are not serial killers, but who end up, not accomplishing anything because, if you don't have the right love in your development, you're not going to fit in well with society in a constructive manner. You're just not going to be able to do it without some kind of exceptional happening within your life. You see, this employer, home base, is overworking Mary to the extent that, let me pause here and go back so there's background about the next comment that I was going to make. and that is nobody's thinking about Mary's son. The home base is not thinking about the welfare of their employee, and they know she's got a son, and they know they're overworking her. But you see, they may say they care about children and mothers and their relationship and love, but the very fact of the matter of their actions indicate that they cannot do so, and they cannot behave in a manner that is commensurate with what their feelings of how they want to appear to themselves as caring. Because the fact that she's being overworked and her schedule says she can't be with her child enough hours a day to give him the enough love. Betty, your comments that I shouldn't be involved in chit chat with a woman who is, as I'm going to, whose life, very life, is probably in danger, and as well as her losing her son, temporary or permanently, most probably 100% guaranteed now. You see, Americans are known to be very selfish, chasing the buck, and self-centered, and that kind of thing around many parts of the world as I have contacts. And you are a product of that, of what you're saying, because what you're saying is to walk on by this woman who's lying in basically an emotional gutter of poverty with her child, and just say, well, she's cleaning my apartment, okay? Enough said. Don't get involved in any chit chat. And I know you don't want to appear to be this kind of person, but this is what you're asking me to do. This is what your words were. Stick with professionals. Don't get involved in the chit chat, personal stuff. And this is why I can't abide with your words. And I've got to tell you, you've got no legal authority to make such a comment. It's not professional. It's not moral. It's not ethical. It's not in the best interest of Mary or her child. You're not thinking about Mary or her child. You're thinking about some kind of esoteric, theoretical thing where, you should be a professional and not have any kind of chit chat when you have a client, employee, whatever, contract or situation. And yet you see, if you did that, you see, this is where American life has evolved to. This wasn't the case 50 years ago. And it's like the frog. You throw it into cold water, you turn up the heat, and because it's cold-blooded, but by the time it figures out it's hot, it's cooked. It can't move. And that's what happened. That's what's happened with society in America today. And you are that frog. The water is so hot, you can't see that you're being destroyed, and you're helping to destroy society. This is not a grandiose thought. It's a fact. In Oregon, they had trash all along the roadways, and a lot of them were cans. And so they had a bottle bill initiative, and you can Google that. And the industry had all kinds of reasons why it shouldn't pass, the nickel on the can. Well, when they passed the bottle in a great struggle, all of a sudden, not only the cans disappeared because the teenagers and other people, beer drinking, etc. people were, they put them back in a 6-pack holder, which didn't go out the window too, which was part of the trash, and the bag for the fast food and other things that they had in the car. So they put that nickel in there, which at that time was, you had 30 cents, which is, the price of you were considerably up to having the price of a beer or another can of soda. So the roadways, all of a sudden, like 80% or so of the trash disappeared off the sides of the roads. And that's because everybody did their job. And that's what I'm telling you. Do your job to help build back American society. At least be part of the solution, even if it doesn't cause a step forward, One of the major pollutions in the ocean is plastic straws, plastic. Well, this is from individuals. In order to clean things up, every person has to stop using plastic straws, number one. Stop throwing away plastic. Start using real recyclables, not recycled plastic, but glass and other things that can actually be recycled. You see, everybody's got to get on board, and environmentalists know this, and there have been present very erudite and thoroughly researched presentations about this, that everybody has to get around the world, because there's tremendous amounts of pollution, and they're coming from individuals. Individuals. These are consumer wrappers of various kinds, and every individual, at least enough of us, have to get on board and behave responsibly, and that's what I'm doing. And I can't sleep at night if I ignore the plight of Mary and her son, and nobody's talking about her son. And everybody's upset. But why are they upset? I mean, I can't give much credence to somebody who's upset about Mary's being upset when Mary, nobody's talking about her son, the future of Mary. You want to be concerned about Mary? Well, be concerned about her welfare as a mother, what she's going to feel like in a few years. If her son isn't adequately taken care of emotionally and that son starts acting out, Mary is never going to blame the right people. She's young. We're older. We need to take care of her. It's our responsibility as adults of any species is to take care of the young, so they can take care of us when we get too old to take care of ourselves. She's now too young to take care of herself. She will naturally return that favor if we pay her the favor now, and we see to her appropriate development of her and her child. They are all ours in one way or another. It will come back to us. And you're totally unaware of what I was saying and the implications of what you were saying and doing. And now you may not agree with me, but I know that I'm right. And the same way with Mary, I know that I'm right. And I have to say these things to her. But you've got to realize that. I have always asked her if she was interested. I've always prefaced it that, look, I have something here, such and such and so. Do you want interest? Are you interested? And she's always said yes, and she's always been interested. And she would so often show up and say, well, what do you have for me today? Okay? So you've got to realize that when we had that conversation 6 months ago, when I indicated that I felt I was getting too involved in a relationship, it was not because Anna was feeling uncomfortable. It's because I thought maybe I was overdoing things. In other words, you can give people too much. You've got to give them a chance to implement things, in which she was doing. And here we are 6 months later. If she's saying she's uncomfortable now, if you think she's been uncomfortable all along, you've got to wonder what's going on with her if she hasn't said something before now. You see, this is something that you could have thought about, and you didn't, because you jumped to conclusions. You didn't think about all the things that you could have thought about. Sometimes the lack of information is the important thing to think about why and what information might be missing. But anyway, she started saving $100 a month. Yeah, see, there's her future. Think about that. See what that did for her? Here she is making $15 an hour, and she's going to have, if she, acts responsibly with it, she'll have $1 million when she's 65. The question is, Betty, how much will you have? Given your age, you start now. If you calculate at your age to get $1 million by 65, see how much you have to save now in order to get that much. You see what has been done For Mary, $100 a month is easily done. And as she earns more, or whatever, as she goes in life, it'll still only be ever $100 a month, and so it'll be far easier as she goes to have $1 million. And it's virtually a done deal, provided nothing major happens to the economy in such a way that it obliterates that kind of thing. Nothing's really guaranteed. And another thing, her car was, one day her car was, she said, it had quit. She was obviously going to have to buy another car. And I said, well, look, Mary, have you thought about leasing? She said, what? I said, look, you can lease a car for less than car payments when you buy a car. And if you look at the fiscal advantages, which I have done, between leasing a car and buying a car, for a normal car, at the end of your 3-year lease, if you had compared to purchasing the car, you would be around $4,000 ahead if you had leased the car. And if you're buying a car, you're going to have car payments for some time. Your lease payments are going to be less, and the deal is that with a lease car, you'll be getting a new car every 3 years. You can change your model, you can change your make. If you buy a car, you're going to be locked in for maybe 10 years, to a car maybe you don't like anymore. Maybe there are other models, kind of their new safety things. There are all kinds of things. There are all kinds of reasons for being able to change up your car at will for anything after 3 years, once you get finished your lease. And you don't have repair problems within the first 3 years. But if you're buying a car, now you're stuck, and now the repairs start mounting up. You're still making car payments. Now you have repairs, inconvenience, downtime, loss of work, loss of wages. And as you see, Mary, you don't like it anymore. Your car, you want a different car. So you see, you're actually you're better off. And so she says, well, I have not very good credit. I said, well, a lot of people are like that. Let's Google that. So go online, and turns out that Ford Company has a program that specially designed and they're the only car manufacturer at that time that had one, that people with really bad credit could lease cars. Depending on your credit score, or whatever, it was a tiered interest rate. Still better than buying a car. Still 3 years, still new car every 3 years. All the advantages, it's great. So what if she went down to the dealership, And so she has to pay off her present car first, but in order to do this lease. But she now knows, and see, here's a major improvement in her life for the rest of her life. See the advantages of you go to church and you read the story about the Good Samaritan, but when it's right in front of you in real life, and there's a person lying in the gutter who needs help, and you tell me to walk on by. What are you, crazy? You see, this is why people's minds become compartmentalized between actuality and theory or belief or whatever you want to call it. But that is the implications and the result of if I were to follow your advice to stay out of Mary's personal life. Well, look, it's right in front of me. I couldn't go to sleep at night. I couldn't live with myself. Now, she didn't volunteer these things. I saw them, and I said, well, why this and why that, and she realizes, and she said to me, I don't know why I trust you. I'm telling you these things. I don't know why I trust you, but I do. And I said, I know why. Because I'm trustworthy. And because you know that I can see you. And this isn't, I'm not doing this to everybody. If I were doing it to somebody named Betty or Jill or Bob, whose friends I also have, I do the same thing, but I tell them completely different things because they are different people. And I see them with the same eyes that I see you, but I see them differently because they are different. See, this is what you don't know, and you made all these assumptions, Betty. Uh, from you just basically got emotionally aroused, that you needed to tell me something that apparently I had caused somebody to be uncomfortable. And the question is, yes, and why was that person uncomfortable? If someone is uncomfortable, maybe we need to give them some attention. Maybe they need help. Maybe we need to look in why they were uncomfortable. And Mary hasn't indicated why, but I know probably why it was, because we had been texting about her poor performance here. Well, don't jump to conclusions just yet, again. Because when she started coming here, you see, she thought what I was saying was interesting. She'd agreed that she would like to hear it, and she was making changes. She was mentally alert. She was interested in things, and I saw a deterioration in this over a period of months, after 6 months or so. And I noticed this. And I saw that she was overworked, and I could see the correlation. She also had a son, 3-year-old son. Imagine the amount of energy that takes. Because that is one of the really heavy-duty periods of time when a human being needs succor, nutrition. If she weren't breastfeeding her child enough hours a day, you can imagine what would happen to the child physically. Well, the same thing is emotionally and love. They take time. They take time for the child to receive and ingest and develop in the presence of her mother. If she were to feed her child, maybe, okay, half an hour, set it aside, and go off on errands, and not to come back for a couple of hours when the child needed feeding again, and did this, and that's the only contact she had with her child, sure, the child might have enough physical nutrients of milk, but that child would be so deformed mentally and emotionally, it would be incomprehensible to what kind of a being or thing it would be if it ever survived. Really, if it ever even survived for a year. I mean, the studies that they have done. I'm sure the monkeys they've taken, and they've had a screen, a mannequin of wire mesh, large squares of wire in the shape of a mother monkey, and they would have food there. And in another room, they would have the same mannequin, but covered in cloth that a mother's skin might be. And what did the young monkeys do? They would go in, get the milk, go back in, and hang on the mannequin that was clothed in cloth. A developing mammal needs both physical and love and attention. And of course, the monkeys that were on the clothed mothers did not mature well, because they did the best they could, but they weren't getting love. It's a dramatic experiment. Another one that's applicable here is one about the dog with the collar. Very applicable to Mary, and one that I was trying to help out on, again, in a major way for her. she felt that she had to work as an employee, work a day, work a day, work a day, work. That's all she knew. But I had been self-employed. And with her skill, ability, congenialness, her friends, relatives, her social milieu, church, etc., it was obvious to me that she could parlay her well-developed professional skill level to start her own company. She already had the contacts who wanted her to work and clean for their houses. And then the contracts for insurance and that kind of thing, etc. Home base is getting over 3 times what Mary's salary of $15 an hour is. So with calculations, Mary, instead of working 7 days a week, she could actually, with conservative speaking, could make more money working only 26 hours a week. This was very appealing to her at that time, when she was fresh, when she got here, even though she'd been overworking herself. She hadn't really degenerated too far. And so this was interesting to her. And I said, I can help you do this because I've started a number of businesses just like in your situation. I know how to do it, etc. I have the experience of very successful businesses that I was very experienced in, and had a very good product and was very well received. Word of mouth. You're in this. I tell Mary, you're in the same circumstances. This is so easy, and I can walk you through the steps. This can be planned out. Of course, it has to be planned out in detail before anything is done. And and then you can see how it can be executed, and you can take a gradual step to see along the way to see if there can progress, to see if it's feasible, and there'll be virtually no risk in money or in any other way. But some things interfered in her social life, because, and you, Betty, if you've never done this, you may think this is risky, terrible advice. But see, if you haven't started at least one business of this kind and been successful at it and enjoyed it over a reasonable period of time to indicate that you could actually do it and retain customers and be successful, you're going to be fearful of this. And people are fearful of cutting out on their own. And, you see advisors and coaches saying, it's not that bad, blah, blah, blah. He says, because people are like that. It is terrifying to people. But so I've had so much experience with this, I feel so much more job safety and security that I don't rely on somebody else's competency in handling customers, and whether they like me or not, whether I'm going to get fired or not, whether I'm going to get benefits or not, or, just I have a job the next week. It's just so much more job security, and it seems counterintuitive to people who haven't done it. And so that was there. And so you see, there was a number of improvements that were being made in a major way for the rest of her life. And as she said, she commented, she says it was natural for her to have relationships with elderly people or older people, much older people, that she would learn from them. So this was also a natural fit for her to chit-chat in this way. And anyway, getting back to the dogs were that they took dogs and they had a large cage. On one side, it was the electrical floor was wired for electricity shock. The other side was not. And a dog was put in there, and it could see both sides of the cage, and a collar was placed on the dog. And then it was shocked electrically to the point that it was, it wanted to jump, and it tried to jump, but the collar held it over the half that was electrified. And eventually, of course, the dog gave up. Even trying, it would get shocked, and it would just lie there, just, gave up trying. And then, interestingly enough, they took the collar off. And they shocked it. And it still didn't try to move. Now, they had another set of dogs that they put in the cage without a collar on, and they shocked it. And, of course, it jumped to the free side. And they did that a few times, and it jumped to the free side. And they put a collar on that dog, group of dogs, and they shocked it. And, of course, after a period of time, the dog, it started to jump, of course, to the other side, but it eventually, after a number of times, it gave up too. It just gave up and just lay there and shocked. But when they took the collar off and they shocked it, right away, it jumped to the free side. Now, going back to Mary, you see, it was obvious to me that she needed to be aware that there was a free side. She needed to be aware that she had a collar on that had been put there by society and her family, and she had allowed it to be put on, and she was maintaining it, even though those people were no longer present, that there was, in fact, no collar there, and she could go to the free side. And I was saying these things to her, and she was saying, yeah. And I was saying, look, I cannot carry you to the free side. It's obvious. It's there. But you have to walk on your own. Yes, it's risky because you've never done so. You've always had a collar on. And this is the way people are. Most people have collars of one kind or another. And one person remarked, the door to your cell is open. Why do you stay inside? My comment is, the jail is of your imagining. You see what I was trying to do for Mary. And so, no, she was not uncomfortable at all. As you can see, there's no reason why she should be. And she said she wasn't. And as she said, But after 6 months or so, I was aware that her mental functioning was declining, and she was not implementing things that were good suggestions for her well-being. She was making bad choices and clearly poor judgment. I mean, just little things, little by little. Her actual brain thinking and processes were slowing down, like they were getting in mud. She was unaware of it, and if you've been talking to her, you would be unaware of it. But you don't have the capability and capacity of perception and purposely, deliberately develop these things. You don't realize that about me, that I have actually done this over half a century deliberately because of some things a man taught me when I was in my 20s. But you're seeing the effects of it are very real. So I became aware of this. So I showed Mary this stuff on the, I already knew this was going to be the case, obviously, but I showed her the documented studies from the Mayo Clinic and others about lack of sleep, insufficient sleep, and she agreed, but she didn't do anything about it. And I said, you're going to have accidents, your mind cannot sustain good judgment and coordination and stuff, and you're going to have accidents, and there are mental breakdowns further down the road, or breakdowns. They're not. You don't get warning about that stuff. And so she would say things like, "Well, I get used to it. I'm okay. I had a good sleep last night. I'm okay now." And I told her, it takes time to build up over sleep deprivation. I mean, 1 or 2 nights and of lack of sleep, and you can make it up in a night or two. That's true. But after many, many months and over half a year, it's just so more than you've been here, that's not going to work. So but she was totally unaware. She says, this is the value of having some psychology and some awareness of your brain, functioning. And so she went off, continued going on her way. And of course, it's up to her. I mean, it's up to me to say something because so about 4 weeks ago, she had her first accident, first physical accident. She tripped over like a 2 or 3 inch threshold, didn't see it, whatever. Sprained ankle, time off work, went right back to work, working on a poor ankle. Bad news. I told her. Then, a couple weeks later, big accident. Could have been broken her frickin' neck. Down a flight of stairs, She had gotten too many bags of things in her hand. She was trying to make one trip, whatever she was doing, in both hands. Too many bags, trying to make one trip, in a hurry, in a rush, you know, nose to the grindstone, couldn't let up, got that collar on, had to do this, had to do that, fell down the stairs. I don't know. Ankle problems, hip, back. I mean, a week later, still in pain, not even talking about yet soft tissue injuries, which could crop up in 2, 3, 6 months, could be debilitating for life. I mean, you realize the seriousness of this situation. You see, you didn't gather enough information to realize what I was trying to do here, but you were thought that, oh, this is just chit chat. You're getting into personal life. You shouldn't be doing this. You like, yeah, you see, I should be doing this now. You see, if you don't realize that I should be doing this, that your insistence on these arbitrary policies about chit chat, where there's no legal authority of any kind, nor moral authority, nor moral obligation to behave such, that you're actually creating the type of environment of selfish human beings, of Americans who are going about walking by their brethren here, in unconscionable ways, yet going to church and feeling good about themselves. I mean, give me a frickin' break. This is serious stuff, Mary's life and her child is at risk, and nobody's even talking about her child yet, except me. And I was trying to do things for her child along the way, children's books, and seeing if Mary could know enough, to give her child, the whatever. And so that was that accident. And then there was the one where she was in a rush and she didn't take her flu shots and, had to take time off work and her customers, clients, suffering as a result, calling her. And so she tried to go back with their houses while she was sick. And I declined to have her come here, obviously. Even though I had a flu shot, their residence here, it would not be acceptable with management here. So she had to lose time and work. So that was the third thing. And then she was so tired one night that she thought she'd go to sleep, and she woke up and she'd missed two clients that evening. Now, see, it's starting to affect her job performance. Having an accident is overlooked because it's an accident, so to speak. There's sick time. There's, this is acceptable. But if you oversleep and home base, says you overslept, this is not an acceptable thing professionally. So Mary is beginning to jeopardize her job. And then she comes here the last couple of weeks, and there's stuff that clearly has to be done. I mean, you have to, when there's a significant a softball size of dust giddies whirling around in the vacuum cleaner, which is a small vacuum cleaner, you're going to ruin the vacuum cleaner. And twice she's neglected to do that, and it's right there in clear plastic. You can see it swirling around, and even if it stopped, And other things around the apartment that, the way she hung up clothes was damaging the clothes, and hanging things up wet that not to dry, that they wouldn't dry. And so the last time I made comments, because, now her actual job performance when she's on the job is not adequate. I have to go and do things to clean up after her after she's come. And is she doing this to other customers? I'm going to tell her, for her own good, and also that it's not going to be good for her to be here. You see, and I see that she's continuing to go downhill. And I don't want that kind of person around me. Because she waltzes in here now, and she's not personable anymore. She's so overworked and overwrought. She's not capable of being personable and congenial anymore. And she says, "Well, what's the difference if I do the work?" You see, does home base know this? They're concerned about I made her uncomfortable. Do they know why she's uncomfortable? And I'm telling Mary, no, this is that's no, you can't come here and just do the work. No, that's not enough. I don't want a robot here. I want somebody come here who's a person, who has a reasonable, congenial, friendly relationship with me. I don't want somebody who's an automaton, a cold automaton, running herself into the ground. I can't stand being around that happening. I can't stand being around a dog that's eating its flesh off because it itches so much. I can't stand seeing that. The dog may think it's comfortable and it's doing the right thing. I can't stand being around that, And so she says, "Well, I'll leave." See, this is again a really. So you see her remarks. It's totally inappropriate. She's just, I'm probably the only person in her life, because she's certainly not getting it from her family, who's really paying attention to her well-being. And the first thing she says is, "Geez, I'm uncomfortable. Maybe I guess I should leave and not come back." You see how terrible this is, and you people are overlooking what, don't let her slip down the drain. There are two people's lives at stake here. And realize that, and I told her, at this point going forward, so I'm not asking you to leave. You've always done what you wanted to. Nobody's stopping you from doing that. You decide what you want to do, but, you come continue cleaning here if you want, But I said, the next thing down the line is an emotional breakdown for you, or a physical breakdown, or a mental breakdown. They're all different kinds. But it's called a break because it's going to be unexpected. Overwork, lack of sleep, etc., etc. And you have the smallest thing will trigger the break. You become totally vulnerable, and now a very small thing will trigger a break. And after the break happens, you can't go back. You can't say, "Oh, that was such a small break, I'll just pretend it didn't happen then." No, you can't do that. The damage is done. Now you're on medication. Now you're in the hospital. Now you're laid up. Now you're can't take care of your son. Your foster care is gonna go. How long is this gonna happen? Is there permanent damage? Are you gonna be a Valium mom for the rest of your life? You're gonna lose permanent custody of your child to the father was just a boyfriend anyway, and just the circumstances now. Outlook for your child are really bad, as though they weren't bad enough to begin with, and you're going to be so devastated, and it'll just make things worse, and you're not going to have any warning, and when is this going to happen? What kind of event? I don't know. Maybe your son will get sick. Maybe he'll break its arm. Maybe just some colleague will say some remark to you that you take the wrong way. Maybe they didn't mean to make you feel bad. And you'll go home crying, and the next morning you'll wake up and the world will have changed. You'll look up and everything will be feelingless, a void. You'll look around. Everything will be the same, but something's different. You're different. You can't feel anymore. Your child will come in, but you can't feel his presence. And many, 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 oh God, so many people have been there. My mother has been there. She ended up, she took us kids away from our father, went up north. She came down with hepatitis, so we had to take care of her. Well, my dad found out where we had gone. But he showed up at school one day when I was in school, and there he stood at the door. I was shocked. And of course, he was the legal father, so he took us out of school right then, put us in his car. Of course, we had no choice. And he drove right by our mother's house without a word. And she ended up in a mental institution for over a year. Shock therapy before the time that they knew how to use it, when it was damaging. She was probably fortunate she didn't get a frontal lobotomy. And he took us back down to where we had come from, and she came later, I don't know, a year or two or so later. We found out about this many years later. We didn't know this at the time, what had happened to her. Such a small thing, and it ruined her life, you see. And Mary is headed in that direction. I mean, step by step, I have been documenting this to her. You see, and you didn't know what you were saying to me when you said, Sean, why are you getting involved? This isn't appropriate. No, this isn't appropriate. This is appropriate. I'm trying to save somebody, and nobody else can save her. There is nobody else who has the capacity or the interest to save her. Her GP I suggested it or something, and I said, make sure you get a woman doctor, a woman therapist. This is how anybody who hasn't been in therapy and doesn't know anything about psychology, it's a terrifying thing. So that didn't happen because of the support she had at home. Ignorant people produce ignorant people. I know about her environment there. I'm trying to give herself and her son a chance at real freedom, because I haven't even addressed the real freedom. This is just talking about, chit-chatting about physical freedom. As you see, everything that I've mentioned, improvements in her life so far, have just been about monetary things. Then therapy would be something, another step up. As I told Mary, everything comes from within your mind. All the choices you make tomorrow will come from your mind of what it is today. And if you don't change yourself today, you're going to make the same choices for yourself tomorrow, regardless of what it looks like. You may choose apples instead of oranges, but the effect on your life is going to be the same. Same relationships, and she would agree, but it's like everybody. They have the right thought, they don't put it into action. And so getting back to the very beginning of home base and their ignoring her, being overworked, yes, it is. They should pay attention, because they're going to lose Mary. Because judging from what's happened, the progression, the downward deterioration, is what I told Mary. And this is, part of, this didn't make her uncomfortable before, but it was the fact that I mentioned there were very specific things like the vacuum cleaner. That's what made her uncomfortable, you see. That's the only thing she can really focus on, because that's the workaday world kind of person she is, the limited experience and the development of her intelligence, And I said, Mary, you're intelligent. You are as intelligent as I am. And she looked at me in disbelief. I said, the difference is you haven't developed yours yet. And that is the case. She does have the potential, and I don't think the rest of her family does. Very tricky thing to do, and you have to have help of people who have done it before. You're not going to be able to do that on your own. But you've got to have the initiative. You've got to be able to stand being uncomfortable in a big way. So Mary has a long way to go, because she just wants to be comfortable. And whoever's listening to this tape, Betty or whoever, you're probably the same. You want to be comfortable. And you know why? Because that's what's safe for you. Because what's uncomfortable to you is a danger sign. It's kept you safe until now. But if you want to move forward, you've got to distinguish between what's good uncomfortable and bad uncomfortable. If some food doesn't taste good to you as a child, that may be good protection. But as an adult, you're going to need to expand your nutrition. And you better have somebody who knows the database for the human species about you don't take amanita mushrooms to test out mushrooms and that kind of thing. It's good that other people have experienced. It's unfortunate we don't have them around anymore, but that's the cost of survival. So, kind of like to wrap this up, I think that according to what I've seen, the incline of the deterioration, of downward slope, it has gotten, now it's become physical manifestations as I saw there would be. I didn't know the timetable, but they've come a lot more rapidly. It's kind of like a mother giving birth. The contractions become closer and closer together. You begin to get, that the birth of the child is more and more closer and closer. And so, when is this emotional break? It's inevitable that she's going to have a break. That's all. There's no other way. It's emotional, physical. No, it'll be. Mary is not going to stop. As I said, it looks like you're not going to stop until you are stopped completely in your life. I mean, completely. Before you wake up to the fact that you can't do what you're doing, and you get a one-to-one correlation with what you've been doing and where you are now. And then my words will make sense to you. And maybe going forward, you won't have to go through it again. Maybe this time you will put into practice everything that I've been saying. And you have it in writing. So I wrote up the diet that I gave to my GP, and he overlooked it for myself, and he said, this is good, Included in there is socialization, relaxation time, reflection time every day, complete package. It's not just a diet, it's kind of a lifestyle, Healthy food so you don't put garbage in and create problems emotionally for yourself because of the side effects of whatever the petroleum distillates which the human being has yet to evolve to be able to assimilate. Yeah, so I wrote it up for her mother and her because they needed it, didn't they? Just being a good Samaritan. It's not a prerogative, it's an obligation. I can't sleep at night, and I don't care what anybody says, as you know. President of the United States, I don't give a crap. I will do what needs to be done, period. What needs to be done for somebody's health is health, even if it's just one person. I don't care what your opinion is. And it doesn't matter. I don't know what you're going to do with this tape or these ideas. I simply don't know. And it's up to you, I can't control anybody in this world except myself. And I do what I think I need to do for others. That's all. And you see, I'm not trying to cause harm to anybody. And I wouldn't cause uncomfortableness to Mary under any circumstances, unless it needed to be done. And telling her about her professional performance, that had to be done. Even though as much as I care about Mary, and I have told her how much I care about her, I have to say something, And as they say, the harsh criticism from a wise person is worth 1,000 accolades or well-intentioned people. And that's my comment. I'm half a century older than her. I've been around the block, and I can see what she's going to get into. And, I probably made some changes in her life. She's My guess is within the next 60 to 90 days that what all appearances are, she's going to experience the break. Yeah. And as I said, when this happens, I can help you now, but when this happens, there's not going to be much that I can do for you. You're going to be in a doctor's care. You're going to be medication. You're going to be, I don't know, lose custody of your child temporarily, probably, and maybe permanently. I don't know. But I'm going to call home base in about 90 days and check in on Mary, or maybe I'll send her a text and say, how are you doing, just to see how she's doing. Well, she'll probably text me back. See, I could have glossed things over. I could have said, she could have said, I am comfortable, maybe I shouldn't come back. I said, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I didn't like it. Would you please come back, and, we'll work things out. And, I could have, but that would mean another week of her overworking herself. And if she'd had a break, then she wouldn't have identified that my words were coming back to her, would she? But now she is left of her own accord, and I have indicated that a break is coming, and that this is probably what has to happen before she wakes up. And so when it does happen, as has happened before for the last year, according to what I have said, I'm not a mystic. It's just common sense. It's just, you can just see it's happening. There's just cause and effect. She's getting what she's producing the effect of. She's doing things, and these are the expected results. You'll be crazy if you didn't expect the results that she's been exhibiting. And so now, when she's going to end up in an inevitable train wreck, it's going to come back to her, and she's going to say, you know what? There's a difference between thinking and acting. Now I get it. This is what happens when you don't act. Good thoughts are necessary, but they're not sufficient. They have to be followed by the appropriate actions to give you the appropriate results that you want, because the sole responsibility is yours for your life. And Mary will say to herself, I have done this just as Sean said I would, and he is correct. He never tried to hurt me or harm me. He was trying to, yes, he was brutal in his appraisal of my cleaning those couple of weeks, but I see he had to do it, and I'm going to call him back if he won't be pissed at me. To her, if you can always call me on your own. You don't have to have me as a client, as you keep saying I am. Which is fine. Technically, in one sense, I am. But you see, she's got the same disease that all Americans have. Can't have chit chat outside of professionalism. And it's just so destructive. That idea, it's just the basis for the selfish American. Ignoring, going to church, being so impressed with the Good Samaritan story, and yet walking out the door by a homeless person. See, it's one thing to say something. It's another thing to believe it. It's another thing to act. And this will be a very valuable lesson for Mary, a very valuable lesson. And I have created the foundation that otherwise she would never learn. She would have ended up in the hospital anyway, but if I hadn't said and done the things that I did, it would have been no use. She would not have learned anything. She would not even correlated the fact that she overworked herself in those accidents, because even now she doesn't believe that accident of falling down the stairs and breaking her neck. She said, oh, well, I was just thinking I would make more than one trip. She says, and I said, no, your brain wasn't functioning. And that was the trip over there. There was the lack of shot they're getting. So there was this overseas there, blah, blah, this is all together. And she says she can't put it all together yet. But see, now I have put something in her brain that she can't get rid of, you see. She can't get rid of I have made sure that she's going to learn, that is, if she survives, literally if she lives. And as I told her another time, I said, look, when you look back on these situations here, when you're 60, and she kind of looks at me, and I said, I mean, if you make it. And she looks at me as though I'm taunting her or something, you know. I said, no, no. Any person who's 60 and has got any brains at all, and I've asked my friends about this, I said, you know, I said about this very instance, I said, you know, I said to her, I said, you know, you will look back and you will realize that you were blessed, you were just bloody lucky to have survived at least one time, to be alive to make it to 60. In my case, my personal case, it's been 3 times that I know about that I was literally saved by some external circumstances of some case, that the only thing you can say is there must have been some kind of providence that intervened, because I would not be alive, literally would have been killed, lost my life, uh, if this hadn't happened, you know. But, you know, she doesn't believe it, you know. And if you haven't had that happen to you, you've been very fortunate, or maybe unfortunate, not to have learned about providence. The true arm or hand of providence. You see, Anna has been doing, has been inviting me to do this all along. I've asked her from the very beginning, are you interested in here? I have something. Are you interested? She will say yes. And she would have left a long time ago if she'd been uncomfortable. But only when it got to the point where anything that really made sense to her is the physical performance of her cleaning a house. And when I remarked that it was unacceptable to me, all of a sudden she couldn't handle it, you see. This is how she can't handle things. This is very serious. This is not just job performance, you see. We're getting into the area of chit-chat again, aren't we, see? Now we can maybe do something about with her. Now we see that she doesn't value anything but physical actions. This is a very serious oversight on her part. But she's going to have to learn. And fortunately for her, if she's lives through this experience that's coming up for her. And I really try to leave the door open under all circumstances for a person. Just let their door be open. If they come with their door shut, the least I can do, I feel, be responsible for leaving them with their door open, in spite of they may think I'm a bad guy, or other people around may think I'm a bad guy. I think there's nothing better I can do for another human being is to open a door for them. This is a terribly useful thing for another human being. And a person, it's so difficult that this would happen to a person if they didn't have help. Ignorance is a straitjacket beyond compare. I don't know what can be done about home base. They're just profit driven. But are they? Overworking Mary, and they know they are. And they know she's a better employee than the high turnover rate they have. Why don't they pay her at least $1 more, as she's asked? Why don't they lighten up on treating her in a reasonable way so she'll want to stay? Why don't they treat her in a way that she'll be actually physically be able to have a good family with her son in the future? To be able to physically work even another month without having a mental breakdown? Getting sick, having an accident, who knows? Why aren't they concerned about her? Her son. Why is nobody mentioning her son? Why is nobody mentioning her son? Everybody is concerned about people feeling comfortable. Are you comfortable with the fact that you haven't mentioned her son? Are you kidding me? Can you stand in front of me and look at me in the eye and say, I am comfortable with that I have ignored her son? I am comfortable with the fact that I have told you that you shouldn't chit-chat when the very life of this woman is at stake here. It's clearly been documented. She's already been physically injured a couple of times now. And you're honestly telling me that my relationship should be totally, strictly, impersonally
professional with only professional comments about wipe here, wipe there, do the laundry, don't do this, don't do that. I mean, if you can look me in the eye and say that, I'm just, well, okay. I go, I've seen that look before. So, yeah, nothing new. You will pay for it in the end because that's the way you're going to treat yourself. That's the way you are treating yourself. You know, Jesus said, love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, actually, the Middle Eastern languages, when they were translated into Latin, couldn't, because Latin is an alphabetized language, and the Middle Eastern languages were ideograms or hieroglyphs or that kind of thing. They use a different processes in the brain, and those particular languages can handle multiple meanings uh, and arrangements within the same phrase or the word. As and so actually, if you look into this, love thy neighbor as thyself, you see some things some things in translation get through if you aren't aren't don't accept things on strictly literal face value. And if you see that love thy neighbor as thyself, you can see it can easily be interpreted, might have been interpreted or said as you love your neighbor, so you love yourself. If you don't change the way you are today, you will make the same choices for yourself tomorrow, and your life will be the same tomorrow as it is today. Love thy neighbor as thyself. As you love your neighbor, so you will love yourself. It is a reflection of how you're loving yourself. And he pointed them out, and they are just as accurate and appropriate today as they were decades before he arrived.
So, anyway, the bottom line to all this is, have I done anything that's illegal? Has Mary done anything that's illegal? Number two, have I or Mary done anything that's immoral? Number three, have either of us done anything that's unkind to anybody? Do I need to go on? Have we done anything to hurt ourselves? But in fact, haven't we done things that long term are for the good of Mary? Has anybody else indicated or done anything for her in this manner, but in fact, hasn't her employer done things that are damaging in their policies to her in a number of ways? They know she's a single mom. They know she's overworked. They know she can't say no. Have they expressed any interest in her long-term well-being? So finally, just to show you that, have you or anybody mentioned anything? I mean, anything, even a word, a name about the well-being of her 3-year-old little boy, her child. You see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? There are two lives here, and nobody else is doing anything. Nobody else is doing anything, but all the rest of you are in fact doing something that is damaging to her. Your policies, your words, your actions are damaging to this person and his mother. Don't you get it? You probably can't face the facts. The bottom line in all this is that this is America today. She came over from Cape Verde for the American dream. And look what happened. Look how she's being treated here by Americans. Her father is presently coming over because he believes in the American dream now. He should be here. He may be here now or in a couple of weeks or so. Isn't he for a surprise? Oh, and I remember, these things come to mind. There's so many of them. But I remember that I had discovered a bunch of science apps, and the kid apparently likes, I don't know, what is it? Electronics or something. I don't know. He's into games. I can't remember what. I can't remember what she said about it, but exactly. But so I gave her a list of all these very fun science apps. Like the Sky View, with all the constellations and stars, and you can point it at the sky and you can see what's there in virtual reality on your phone. These are free. And then solar one about the sun, and you can see the sun in real time, and the solar winds sweeping around in real time, essentially, and then about the geomagnetic fields and representations of the Earth, and weather apps, and you can see what's happening around the world, and earthquake one, and you can see the earthquakes going on around the world in real time. And I think, I don't know, there's a delay of an hour or something. I can't, something like that. And so there was a lot of these science apps, and so I thought, the child, when he goes into school, is going to be into science as everybody is, and today, and so she knows about these things that otherwise she wouldn't know. But kids have these science projects, and outside of school, that she can help the child develop his own sense of curiosity and direct him in paths that in school, the pedagogical curriculum is so regulated and sterilized for the masses, and so she can augment and increase and interest her child in because science is so important today, and so he can monitor the various things going around the Earth and the sun and the universe, and and of course he can then generalize. There'll be other science apps in medicine, and all kinds of very interesting stuff. So I don't know. I mean, is this inappropriate? See, that's what I've been told. This is inappropriate, Sean. You shouldn't. You're getting too involved in her life. I said, I don't think so. Took me all of 15 minutes to look at the apps on my phone, type a list up, and give it to her. I mean, is that a big deal? Yeah, sounds like it is to some people. I shouldn't be doing it. Well, is it illegal? Is it immoral? Is it unconscionable? Is it damaging? Do you ever learn from somebody else's example? And the same way with children's books, children's books that I know are nice. I don't know if she knows about Dr. Seuss or the collection of World Tales by Idris Shah, or a host of other ones that my upbringing. Of course, my father was from Harvard, my mother Wellesley. I grew up privileged white class kind of deal, private education. I know all the classics and the not so classics, and her background coming from Cape Verde, a young 20-year-old single mom, who's looking out for her, so I know there are a lot of children's books that I've become aware of when I was a child. They're good ones that I can see now, being 72, they're important, and so I type up a list of those and sent those on. Geez, as you can see, I've been a real reprobate here. So everybody's running around worried that Mary is uncomfortable Betty, home base, Mary, me. But this focus on being comfortable and uncomfortable, it's just a diversion of mental resources or something. What about being concerned about the welfare, the well-being, the healthiness, the long-term and short-term concerns for the employer and their business? Betty and the insurance company personnel that she is. And Mary, all those things. Nobody's mentioning these things with all these people. And then the son. Nobody's ever mentioning the son with all these things also, the well-being, and all this stuff. And what about me? Everything that has been said before I started being notified about this had nothing to do with any of these things. And when Betty called me, she didn't say anything about any of those things, I know she thinks she does, but she didn't. As you see from the recording, she was not doing that. And home base was not doing that. Mary was not doing that, But I have been doing those things all along since Mary came here. I don't want to say I'm great and proud and look at me and whatever. I'm just saying that the bottom line, the essence, since Mary has been here for nearly 12 months now, I have paid attention to her welfare and that of her son. And she agreed that I was doing so. Her professionalism of job, what she needs to feel is that she's doing a good job. That's the only thing that she can't deal with when it's not up to par. And that's, a good thing. But it's too bad it's the only thing. And that nobody's paying attention to, are they? Are you? She needs help. She needs help. And why not? I mean, it's kind of a piece of cake to see what she needs. So why not do it? A few minutes here, a few minutes there. What could be simpler? I mean, just really,